Good morning and good afternoon from wherever you're tuning in. I'm Shannon Williams, CEO of the Home Furnishings Association, and we are here today to talk about e-commerce inventory strategies for furniture retailers. What we're hoping to accomplish over the next hour is just really talking through some effective e-commerce inventory and fulfillment strategies. And really, how do we offer we're going to use our experts to get some insights on optimizing stock management, streamlining operations, integrating channels, and enhancing the customer experience. As a reminder, this webinar is recorded and it's available on demand at myhfa.org/webinar. And ask questions. The more questions you have, the better. We've got an amazing panel of experts. There's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and I promise to get to as many of these questions as possible. Before we introduce our panel, I'd like to thank Synchrony, who is our education thought leadership sponsor, who makes these webinars possible and is helping us all elevate the home furnishings ecosystem and industry. All right, now onto our panel of experts. I have Scott Lewanowitz, thank you, who is the e-commerce general manager at Hudson's Furniture and Mattress down in Florida. He's got more than 20 years of experience driving online growth for retail brands, and he's currently with Hudson's, which is a 15-store chain down in Central Florida. Thanks for being here, Scott.
Thank you.
I have Amy Taken, who is the senior solutions engineer at Shopify, and she is an accomplished professional specializing in inventory management and logistics for e-com, with more than a decade of experience shaping solutions that not just streamline operations for online retailers, but help drive the architecture and optimize e-commerce e-commerce solutions in the e-commerce ecosystem. Her experience has helped support her in ensuring seamless integration and scalability for high volume retail inventory solution systems. And then I have Teddy G, also known as Teddy Golar, who is the founder of Renaissance. If you've been to market, you've seen him fly by you in blue and probably heard him first. And he spent more than 15 years building a comprehensive digital e-commerce platform, and that's integrating marketing and POS systems and online presence and operational software for accounting, warehousing, and logistics. Full forward solution. So thank you guys all for being here. Let's jump right in. Can we start by talking, or really just describing, what is the current state of e-com in furniture retail, and really how has it impacted your inventory management and fulfillment? Amy, would you mind starting us off on this question the way you're seeing it at Shopify?
Sure. Yes, I think the key state now is everybody recovering from post-pandemic highs, really understanding that the consumer has less to spend. Most furniture retailers are squeezed for OpEx, and so that has direct implications on inventory management and storage. You don't have that disposable income for resources or space to store inventory, and so it encourages the pressure on improved inventory storage and inventory control.
Thank you for sharing that. Ted, can you share your perspective? What are you seeing as the current state of e-commerce, and do you see it the same as Amy's seeing it, or are you seeing something a little different?
No, it's similar. I see that the cost of doing business with e-commerce, for me, it's going up on every level, on every aspect, not just because of inflation. People that, as we get more and more into digital, you go to a typical salesperson in the furniture retail world, they're anywhere from 52 to older. So they're not as quick to accommodate themselves to learn the digital approach. They're just like, I don't want to do this. It's scary to them. It's unknown. It's change. So getting staff that want to do this is hard. And since, as Amy said, since post-pandemic, getting people that want to come work has been difficult, and to do this thing. So getting a team to do so, the impact is that, if you don't embrace this digital, your costs are going to go up everywhere. Digital is definitely a way to control your costs right now. That's what I see with the e-commerce. And I also see a really great trend, and I hope there's a lot of brick and mortar guys hearing me talk right now. I've said many years ago, and I started Renaissance almost 20 years ago now, I said, we're only going to work with the brick and click guys. And brick and click was like, people laughed at us back then, Shannon, as you recall. They laughed when we started doing this stuff. And we said, we want to work with the brick and click because that brick and click is eventually going to become just one synonymous thing. And you see a lot, like, I don't see as many dealers leaving brick to go to click, but I'm starting to see a lot of the clicks come to the brick. That's a trend that we all need to take notice of, because that's a chance for us to win. We have an advantage over them. We know the brick very well. So in the e-commerce trend, it's just e-commerce and brick and mortar, they're the same now. I don't see a difference. They're like a blinded line that used to be gray, that's now it's just all white space. It's all the same.
That's fair. And how are you guys seeing things over there, Scott?
Well, fortunately here in Central Florida, we've been insulated from some of the economic issues in the furniture industry, because there's still always a strong group of our target demo, which is primarily women 65 and up. It's trends very old. In my world, everything, and this could be a holdover from the pandemic issues back in the day, but everything revolves around ETA, and some of our most successful initiatives revolve around getting the products as quickly as possible to our customers. In addition, for me, the brand mix is completely different, what we sell online versus what's being sold in the stores. So that's a big issue. We focused on that end of it to great success. And then again, with the ETAs, for instance, we focus primarily, especially for e-commerce, on brands that we can get to the customers quickly, include even out-of-country manufacturers. Let's say Liberty, for instance, they have a group of products that they warehouse locally here in the US. So we literally focus on the products that are warehoused in the US. So really, for me, ETA is the big driving factor, and that's where we've seen most of our successes. A lot of our positive initiatives have been based around getting the products to the customers as quickly as possible.
That's great. Amy, I saw you shaking your head around that ETA kind of driving the business. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, sorry, I was also ruminating over something Ted said around brick and click and e-commerce becoming one thing. So I just wanted to circle back on that for a second. And that sort of unified commerce approach. I think there is a bigger expectation from every single consumer now to have the same experience, whether they're online or in store, and they want it to be completely seamless. And for that, you need seamless inventory. And now I'm going to go back to what were you saying? Oh, about ETA. Yeah, so really that's around fulfillment and firstly, fulfillment and forecasting. So being able to have the right stock in the right place at the right time, and to be able to see that stock and know when it's going to arrive, I think is critical for all of the furniture retailers today, especially because a lot of their goods have a longer lead time. You're dealing with suppliers, and some of them have some sort of assembly or manufacturing component to as well. So it really adds into the complexity of how you're going to get this to your customer.
Would you say those are the biggest obstacles that anybody that's doing business online is facing when they're managing e-com inventory, is the fulfillment and forecasting?
Yeah. I would say as long as assuming then that you have the correct data, so you would have the underlying digital data of what inventory you have in stock and what sales you've sold, then being able to predict off of that would be your next step into really improving your process. And I think competition is just growing in that space. So it's just making it tougher.
Ted, do you guys see any other obstacles that retailers are facing outside of fulfillment and forecasting?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have enough time on this webinar to go over all that stuff, but there's tons of them. And I'm sure that Scott and Amy could share 10 each very quickly. But the biggest obstacle in my mind, and Scott hit on it earlier, it's expectations now. Expectations are, and look, we're going to talk, this is an exploratory conversation. So we're exploring all these ideas of inventory management and the impact it has, right? So Amazon, they're the anomaly, right? They created expectations, and they've done a very good job of saying, hey, we're going to create expectations that our competitors can't meet. So they'll keep coming back to us. It's a smart model, right? So the last time I checked, I haven't checked this really a whole bunch in the last year and a half, so, but I remember probably 3 years ago or so, somewhere in the ballpark of 80–85% of all Amazon deliveries were less than 50 pounds, right? And there's a higher number, less than 12 pounds, right? Something like that. So they can deliver those things effectively. Like I've ordered stuff for the holidays. It's been to my house in 2 hours. I ordered it. It's here in 2 hours. That's insane. Try that with a living room set. Try that with a bedroom set. You know how it works out for you. So it's created consumer expectations. And if the dealers aren't doing not that level of 2-hour delivery, but something that's as quickly as they possibly can, then they're falling short of expectations. And Amazon or anomalies like Amazon, they'll steal the large product sales as well, because Amazon's not shrinking in furniture sales, they're growing, right? So they're finding ways to do it. And I can assure you they're not delivering it in 2 hours, at least not yet. I'm not going to say they won't. They might, all these drones that are spotted around Philadelphia, New Jersey, they might just come drop off some furniture with their drones. No one said they're not Amazon drones yet, so who knows? But to that point, I think expectations of immediate gratification that's been created by these larger e-tailers, that's a huge, huge challenge for dealers. And if they're not managing their inventory, that managing inventory allows them to get the best possible delivery times possible. If they don't manage inventory, their delivery is even harder just by, I mean, you got to make better decisions and you need better information to make those decisions.
Agreed.
That's the big challenge for me.
Yeah, you're bringing up a really valuable point is like when you look at the 200 and let's say if you look back a year, there was what about $210 billion that came into our industry or that was spent within our industry. And a third of that was just through the top 9 e-commerce brands, with Amazon taking a large lead into those sales. And we're not seeing any kind of slowdown. I mean, that is just increasing. Can we talk about it's Amazon as a platform that set that expectation, but Amazon is thousands of retailers, correct? And so, if I think this question comes up all the time is they're consistently taking more and more market share. They're taking certain SKUs. And I think you make a very valid point around the less than 50%. But when you factor in companies like Wayfair and some of these other companies that aren't doing the under 50 pound market, how does a retailer even stay relevant against, again, Amazon's a platform and you're finding these new retailers that are willing to sell for a couple points. And they're not doing those big operating costs. They're drop shipping. They're doing, passive income kind of business. How does a retailer compete?
Is that for anybody?
Sure. Yeah.
I got an answer. I'd love to speak on this one. So how do we compete? Okay. So what every dealer needs to realize is that they're a brand, whether they like it or not. They have an identity, right? So whatever expectations they meet or don't meet, they're going to be identified that way. So there's this huge thing called reviews. And I speak constantly in our business about third-party validation. If I tell you guys something great about Renaissance, I'm just selling you or trying to brag, right? But if a third-party customer says something, that's a different scenario for us. It has more validity in the words. So when it comes to inventory management, there's a lot of tools out there through inventory management and technology that they can use to get these reviews from customers. And I often ask dealers these questions because I've seen this situation around the world, not just in the US, because we deal on a global scale. And I've gone to countries before COVID that didn't think e-commerce was going to be relevant in their country. Well, as soon as COVID happened, they were like, Ted, please turn on our shopping cart right away, right? And because they were getting ripped for not being able to sell anybody. Well, I can't even buy from your website. These were bad reviews they were all getting. So there's a way that if you get your local reviews, Google doesn't care if you're Amazon or Joe's Furniture. Google doesn't care. Google's job is to give out accurate information, not just plentiful, but they want to be accurate. So if they're promoting a dealer that has bad reviews, people won't use Google. They'll go to Yahoo or Bing. They'll go to a different search engine. Google's product is accurate and useful information. So if you get good reviews, Google wants to promote you because they want people using Google search engine. That they make all their AdWord money. So if you have inventory management, you're meeting the consumer expectations, you can get good reviews, right? And I often ask the dealers this, and I pose this question to Scott as the guy that he does. I say, who's the last person in your business that touches a customer transaction? 9 out of 10 times, really 9.9 out of 10, they say my delivery person. And I go, no, see, that's where you fall short. Your delivery person's the first person for the next transaction. The next transaction, that's what they are. They're the first for the next one. Because we want repeat business. That's what we all want, right? So what's the lifetime value of a customer? And if you take that first sale, like there's things that we could do to make sure they never forget us. If they buy from us, have your delivery guy walk in with a Windex spray bottle, with a vacuum. If he puts a couch on a hardwood floor, vacuum the floor. If he puts it near a window, wipe the window and make sure the consumer sees you do it. Because Amazon ain't doing that. I mean, there's videos on Ring Bells that they're throwing boxes at your front porch. They're throwing it there. Differentiate yourself. That's the answer. Make your brand stand out. You don't got to be bigger to be better. You just got to be better.
Yep. I think to echo what Ted is saying, there's differentiate yourself and show up on a lot more surfaces. So the omnichannel approach, not just a brick and mortar store and an e-commerce store, marketplace integration. Games are now selling products from within a game. Being able to appear on Perplexity AI or any AI tool as a suggested couch for your living room if you're looking for this style or something. Show up in all these different surfaces. And I think really that then ties together how you manage your inventory, because it's managing all these omni-channel and different sales channel demands to be able to say, can I actually do this and prevent overstocking or out of stock scenarios. And so it's really that fine balance of being everywhere, but being able to manage those all together.
I agree with everything Ted and Amy said. I'm going to throw in one other thing that differentiates us in our market, which is our design program, even for e-commerce. When I started here, it was a big thing. We wanted to do in what we call in-house design. It's not unusual for us to have somebody from New York, a retiree, furnishing their home here in Florida. We go, even in e-commerce, we go out to their location, we'll measure their house, and we'll make suggestions and design their entire operation. It's a big revenue source for our company. And it's a big focus for us.
Really great. The something you had mentioned earlier, Amy, was around data. Can you talk a little bit more about how retailers can use the data analytics to get better gain some visibility into their inventory and really look at connecting the online versus in-store experience?
Right. So I think for a true unified commerce experience, everything should report back to one inventory source of truth. And so you should have visibility into how much inventory is in each of your fulfillment locations and how much you have at each of your retail stores, as well as your demand. And that indication then at least will allow you to help you predict which are your fast movers, which are your slow movers, and how to use that data to better stock your existing fulfillment sites, as well as to decide like what's trending in different areas. So different states may prefer a different color. I've heard stories of carpet colors trending on the East Coast versus the West Coast. There are different preferences, and how you then stock that inventory based on where items are being sold for the quickest turnaround time, for the fastest delivery, to meet that customer expectation of a 2-day delivery like Amazon. And so really, I think it's about that unified data source, that everything feeds into one pot that you can access in one view, and have one source of demand and supply so that you know exactly how much you're dealing with.
Ted, I think the topic of this conversation came off that exact issue, right? Like we were chatting at market and we were like, this is the number one issue I'm seeing. Can you talk a little bit about from your perspective?
Yeah, so let's talk about the types of sales there are now. We'll talk about what data does. So there's 3 types of sales, and Scott, correct me, jump in anytime if you hear something different. There's a retail store purchase, in-store purchase, the brick purchase, right? Then there's a special order purchase. So when I say an in-store purchase, it's inventoried in that physical location or a warehouse that belongs to the dealer. Then you have a special order. You don't have it in your store. You might have a sample or a catalog. So you order it from the vendor, they ship it to you, then you deal with the consumer. Then there's a third one. By the way, those first 2, they were traditional for a long time. Then you got the direct-to-consumer model, where now the vendor will ship it directly for you. So now let's talk about that for a second. You're selling out of a catalog, so to speak, and they're delivering directly to your consumer. There's so much that can go wrong there that the retailer's going to fall. They're going to fall on the sword for the vendor if necessary, unless they have visible data like Amy alluded to. When I talk about all the vendor data, it's not like we bug, as you know, Shannon, I bug vendors for all their product data to build their catalogs, right? We want their catalogs. So we want their product images, their product description, the SKU number, weights and dimensions. We want all that so the consumer knows what they're buying if they're online or in the store working off an app. We want them to know what they're getting. On top of that, we know that if we can get that data on a regular basis, if it's not an API, because not every vendor has that, at least get a CSV file. Get something digital you can use to import into a system like Shopify's or Renaissance's platform. You can import that easily, right? It's not difficult to do this. You just have to know what to ask for. Now you get all that data. You can say to them, hey, could you give me your inventory while I'm at it? And the vendor goes, yeah. And then you say, well, how often can you update it? There's vendors like Ashley that gives you inventory in real time. They'll update you right away. And there's other dealers and vendors that are doing this now. So now if I have the real-time data, think about the cost consideration. I know if I'm Scott, I know what I have in my warehouse, and I know what I have for my vendor if I need it. Like Amy said, I know my demands. I sold 30 of these SKUs last month. I should try to make sure I have 30 this month. Maybe I sell 35. I need to special order 5, but I can work my schedule around based on demand. And I'm better in tune to have what I need. I'm not overstocking, I'm not understocking. So I'm meeting expectations, right? Well, there's another side of that. There's cost considerations. Listen, I've worked in stores to understand all this stuff, to know the industry, what I'm doing with it. If I have stuff in my physical inventory and I'm promoting stuff that's not in my physical inventory, that's all special order, I'm losing money. I'm losing margin on the stuff that I already spent my money on. That's bad business choices. Like I said, if you have better information, if I know what my vendors have in stock and I know what I have in stock, so I have technology in front of me that shows inventory for both in a truth source, as becoming more and more of the phrase, you need a truth source of data. Now, data can be your analytics, but it's also, what do I have available from my vendor as well as from my own? Like, you could look at your warehouses. My warehouse is one of my vendors for me. What data do I have? By the way, floor samples are also inventory. Dealers forget this, that their floor samples are inventory. And to that point, for better forecasting, we call it nail down. Do you sell samples or do you nail them down? I've seen the most successful dealers nail samples to the floor. They nail them there, because then you can manage inventory. If you're just selling floor samples, you're not really managing inventory. You're just selling what's on the floor. You're selling whatever you can get. That's what I see a lot of dealers do. There's dealers that do very well with that. Larger dealers, I don't know that Scott would ever try to do that. Hudson, that's definitely not one of their models. I'm not saying they don't do clearance to get rid of floor samples, but they're probably doing lineups, and they're nailing the lineup to the floor, and they're working with that. So I think that the key is understanding there's 3 types of sales now, and you as a retailer need visibility to all the sources. You need it. If you need visibility into your vendor's inventory, because if not, the only visibility you have is what you have in your warehouse. If you're using an inventory management system, you have that, and then once it's out of your control and you do special order, you're at the mercy of that vendor, because they'll tell you today. And Shannon, you talk to many of your members, they'll say, "Well, I called them today. They said this would be available. When I called later to coordinate the delivery, they said it won't be available for another month." Scott, that ever happened to you?
All the time. It's almost a daily occurrence.
So you have to look at those 3 things now: the direct-to-consumer sale, the special order sale. Sometimes people call it just-in-time. I think they're the same to me now. Or the my own inventory sale. And if you don't have visibility into those 3, promote the one you have the most visibility into, which is generally going to be your inventory, your personal. Sell that first, because that is the largest cost of capital for a dealer. Sorry, Shannon, that was long-winded.
Can you piggyback on what Ted said? And what's Hudson's approach? Are you guys doing the retail sale, the special order, just in time, or are you guys doing the direct to consumer?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything Ted's saying. We do have a very robust inventory management system. We use Frog Furniture Resource Operations Group, and we literally differentiate within our stores throughout our selling region. In other words, we'll stock based on sales data. We'll stock different products, different product categories in different stores that we have. Internet's a little different. We stock everything that is in sale in the stores. We do it possibly a little bit differently from other companies, but it works very well for us. We have a purchasing department that manages what we call all of our active or floored products. But then within my division, e-commerce, we also have an e-commerce product manager. So what we do there, we have 33,000 plus items on our website right now. Of those, maybe 40% are active. The remaining are what we call Web A. Those are, in fact, all special orders. We do not stock those at all. However, as I said previously, we focus on brands that can deliver quickly. On our website, if anybody cares to take a look, we have a very successful program called Get It Fast. And we literally, any products that we can deliver within 25 days get the Get It Fast banner. It's been a huge successful initiative for us because people want those products right away. So that's pretty much the way we do it. My product manager actually manages probably 60% of the items on the website. We are in contact, as Ted was saying, with the vendors daily in making sure that our inventory and pricing also is correct. Another big bane of ours is discontinued and dropped products. Always trying to get that information from the vendors is oftentimes difficult, and it's an ongoing initiative. But this is stuff we deal with every single day because we have to deliver accurate product information to our customers. We have a very low cancellation rate for that reason, probably below the industry because of the accuracy of our inventory information.
That's interesting perspective. I think one of the biggest questions everybody wants to know is what are the strategies that we can do, or what are the best practices that we can have for maintaining optimal levels of inventory and avoiding overstock and stockouts.
Well, I want to jump on something that Scott said. He talked about his Get It Fast program, which I love you brought it up, Scott. I am familiar with it because I think it's pretty cool you guys do it. I talked about Amazon delivering 2 hours. They have a Get It Fast program for furniture, 25 days, and it does very well. So all the dealers that are not the size of what Hudson is, I want you to be aware of what he said. As long as you tell the proper expectations to a consumer, you can expect it, in a month, and it'll be there, and it's there, they're okay. If you tell them it's going to be there in a day and it takes you a month, shame on you for telling them a day when you knew you couldn't do it. That's a shame. That happens often, by the way.
And we've dropped.
Go ahead, Scott.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to say we've dropped many vendors because they're not giving us accurate ETA data. In other words, we're making promises to our customers. If they can't if they can't fulfill those, we get rid of them. We move on.
Scott, I love that you said that as well. See, I've known Hudson for many years, and they're a great dealer. You guys do great business in the right way. We talk to our dealers when they go to market. We have what's called eCommerce ready catalogs. So we work with all the vendors directly. We build the catalogs at no cost to them, as you know, Shannon. Many of the vendors come into your space to see us about this stuff. And they'll tell me that, they'll come to me and say, hey, Ted, I got to give you my data because my dealer said they're not going to carry me if I don't get the catalog built digitally, which is great because they need that data. And it's like what Scott just alluded to. If the vendor's not helping you sell product that they're trying to sell to you, are they really your vendor partner? We want vendor partners, and more of the vendors are getting this now. And there's a lot of solutions that you can unify, like platforms like Shopify and Runcom, that you can build these catalogs on. It's not difficult anymore. It takes time, and eventually get easier and easier. At one point, everyone had these big box televisions, and then flat screens came out, and they're like $1 zillion. Now you could go to Walmart and you could buy a flat screen television or a Best Buy for like $200-300, right? So technology will advance, it'll get more cost effective. But in the meantime, some of it you're gonna have to do manually, some of it you're gonna be able to use automation to do these things. So back to your other question, Shannon, I think one of the things that people aren't making the most use of in answering these questions, a lot of these dealers, is AI. It's there now. Renaissance, we've been using AI for a long time, probably the full existence of Renaissance. But to that point, it's become more mainstream in the last 2 to 3 years, like really mainstream. Everyone has access to it, almost like the flat screen televisions, right? If you're not sure what to do, ask chat. You got an expert for $20 a month. Just ask chat. Where do I start? And I've done all these things in front of dealers and showed them, because I go around and do speaking things, Shannon, and I'll say to them, where do I start my inventory? And literally one of the answers was, get out a notepad, a ledger, and manually record your inventory. That's what I said to start. I was like, it at least said, get out a notepad and a pen and manually start to record your inventory in your warehouse. I was like, I love that chat was blunt. I didn't know it had a sense of humor, right? This is phenomenal, it did that. So using AI is the greatest tool ever given to the world. And I want to say this because a lot of dealers I've spoken to around the world, they're afraid of it. They're all talking about being replaced by it. I said, listen, here's how it works. There's a tool involved in the chat equation. Chat's either going to use you as a tool to learn from you, or you're going to use chat as your tool. You got to pick, because they're the only two options. Either it's your tool or you're its tool. Pick which side you want to be on. We chose to make it our tool. We don't want to be its tool, right? And it does make it better for everything we do. So I hope the dealers realize that. Just go talk to chat about your inventory management. It'll be an expert that you pay $20 a month for. It's the cheapest expert you're ever going to get.
Amy, you mentioned something about perplexity earlier on. Is that kind of what you were suggesting, is using that as a tool, or do you see a different application of AI in the avoidance of stock?
Well, it's so much like eCommerce. Shopify has AI built in all over, and it's kind of like electricity or internet. It's just something you're going to use to get your everyday job done. And I think AI is going to show up in the shopping journey and help consumers make that decision. But what I'm really excited about on the inventory forefront is that forecasting ability. So when you're talking about those products that are sitting on your floor that aren't moving, what is the discount that AI can calculate for you based on all your history of sales to say, if you discount these COD movers at 20%, you'll be able to clear it in 2 weeks and still make a better margin off it because you freed up that space for the A movers now to come in, and to be able to give you better analytics with the sea of data that you're going to get, including those vendor data feeds that you're now getting because everybody's adopting a bit more technology. So that's kind of really where I'd be excited from an inventory standpoint is that AI being able to be better at predict and then advise you on a strategy to move that slow moving inventory, or anticipate where a sale would be coming up. Let's say it's a seasonal business, and say, look, in the past, last year this time, these sold really hot. You may want to up that.
How does a retailer gain confidence in using that? I mean, I think most of us started playing around when it was, like chat was first released. We got some very weird responses. How does a retailer start to lean in and feel confidence in using that and actually taking that advice as with the same trust or confidence that they may take somebody that they work with?
Yeah, great question. I would say that AI has come a long way already. Like, yes, it will still hallucinate, so you always want to kind of sense check it a little bit. But we all have to eventually adopt. So I would say that they should try it. Like, I don't think there isn't like a foolproof use case, but perhaps try it on 2 or 3 like low risk products and see what happens, and run that through.
One of the many things we're doing with AI is we actually submit our entire product catalog and all data we have, and our salespeople on the floor. In the past, they used to use physical catalogs, then they've moved to the website, but now they can go to our AI instance, put in a SKU or anything else, and it'll surface all the details about that product, not only data from our company, but data that they get from all over, other companies too. It's really a truly incredible tool. We're heavily involved in AI and integrating it in every aspect of our operation.
Shannon, you just asked a question that allowed us to do a sequel to this podcast or webinar. This will lead to part 2, right? And I'm going to give you the how-to for this. So what I've done is, because listen, when I told people many years ago, when you start doing websites, you need an e-commerce website. And I would tell them, if you don't have a website, you don't exist. Now I'm saying the same thing about a point of sale. That's the POS is a new way. If you don't have a POS with inventory management, you're not going to exist in the next 2 to 5 years. You're just not. And I said, go ask AI about it. It'll tell you. They don't have the confidence. Many of them didn't have confidence in AI. Here's how you could give them an example to win over their confidence. And Scott, I would challenge you to do this. It's, you guys are going to have good sales data, I'm sure of it. You take sales data from 2 years ago, submit that sales data into the AI system, ask them what it predicts for the next year. Then take your next year's sales, the second year, from a year ago, and analyze it one next to the other. You'll be shocked, because I've had dealers do it and they were shocked. Like, oh my God. And it might have told them, you're going to sell more of this particular SKU. And they go, why didn't? And I go, was there a reason why? They go, yeah, it got discontinued. Like, legitimately. They didn't sell as many as something that told them it would, and that item was discontinued. It's amazing. And that's the only way I could come up with to make them have more confidence. They go, take sales from 2 years ago, tell what it predicts for the next year, and then compare it to your last year's sales. It's scary how close to accurate these things are.
So I heard you say chat like ChatGPT. Are there other tools or systems you're suggesting that a retailer might want to look at? Can you provide some examples or some systems that they might want to look at to help them do this process?
Well, there's numerous systems out there. All you have to do is go to Google and say, what AI systems are most cost effective, what have the best reviews. It's no different than picking a restaurant.
Yeah. I did notice there are a couple already in the Shopify space on the App Store as well. People really leaning into AI and forecasting and being able to ask these sort of questions with your data. And to Ted's point there, they've got tons of reviews, and you can kind of decide what do you think based off other people's feedback of that product.
Yeah. Being in our space, Shannon, we have to be product neutral. We promote one versus the other, we get in trouble. We get phone calls.
Totally makes sense. So if you're a retailer and you're trying to really figure out, obviously there's some tools that exist. How can they best balance the inventory between online and in-store when maybe the pulse of online isn't quite there yet?
I don't think that you have to balance the inventory between, it's just one inventory. Like that's the perspective I've been trying to change on my dealers. It's brick and click. It's not brick or click. It's brick and click. It's the same. You're managing one truth source. This is our inventory. Listen, if a customer gives you a credit card in your store or on your website, everything after that's exactly the same. whether it's a special order, direct to consumer, or in-store pickup or in-store delivery, the process is the same. It's just how you get your money that's different.
Correct. It's the same. It's a unified commerce approach for both inventory and for customers. A customer should be able to visit your online store or in-store, and you should be able to reference them in the same way. In the same way, inventory should be omni-channel. It should extend through everything. And all of these mechanisms for purchase are just another sales channel. The click or the brick is just another way to get an order in.
That's fair.
And that's why you're going to see more and more apps inside the store. There was a point when dealers wanted me to make apps for all their websites. I said, frequency of occurrence isn't enough. You're not a museum or a sports team. Consumers aren't going to come visit you on your app all the time. You're not like an IKEA. That IKEA is a destination, not just a purchase, right? So in that sense, that all the dealers at Renaissance, if you have the app for Renaissance and the website, they're the same to us.
Yeah.
Everything else is the same. They feed the same database, or they feed off the same database as well.
Agreed. And I mentioned earlier, we have a whole set of online only products, but the truth is all of those online products are also sold in the stores. And it's very common for our customers to use our website as a wish list, take that abandoned cart, take it into the store, and it might be full of Web A products, and they purchase them in store. So yeah.
Hopefully some other ones along the way too.
Yeah, but wait, there is a difference to what Scott said. Scott, you just triggered a thought for me. Thank you. There are products that the return rates are higher online. And I recommend the dealers, if that's the problem, take them off. As Scott said, make them, you can have a website only type of assortment where you do better if the customer comes in and sees it in the store, they buy it, they're more, there's no buyer remorse, they're happy with it. Where if they order something online, they might get it, get home, it's not what they expected, and go, oh wait, I want to return that. So in that aspect, that's what you're selling. That has nothing to do with inventory. That's just the presentation, and people are confusing those two things.
Yep.
You'd mentioned the 3 types of sales, and I was earlier, Ted, and I was trying to best correlate. Obviously, if Amazon's the fastest growing and one of the bigger competitors in the space, right? And I understand we're focusing on, how do I differentiate myself as a brand? You were thinking about special order. Obviously, Amazon allows that. You see people who are manufacturing or making or creating products use an Amazon storefront to allow for customization, set the expectations, and execute it that way. So they've captured that kind of experience. They've captured the D2C because you do have brands selling directly to consumers through that platform. One of the questions I'm asking though is on the retail sale, there's an advantage they have where they don't hold most of their inventory, if any. And so you have this rise in people who are buying, let's say from Alibaba, and doing this drop ship opportunity where they're sending, buying 10,000 units of something, sending it directly to an Amazon warehouse. They're handling the transaction, the logistics, and everything else, but they don't have to invest in the inventory cost. How does a retailer compete where they're not, their cash flow is all based on how much of this product moves, where Amazon's not necessarily dealing with that?
So you're saying that Amazon doesn't deal with cash flow issues as much as a smaller retailer has to handle.
Not sitting on like the inventory turnover issue. Maybe warehouse space is an issue for them because there's obviously, a capacity that they can maintain. But if you're a retailer and 30-40% of your capital is in your inventory, I think that this is one of the things that we've explored a lot over the past few months. We've been talking about finance, that this is such an area that is a challenge for most retailers is that inventory turnover is, the profitability only comes when I can actually recoup some of the cash that I have laid out. And so if you're dealing with a brand like Amazon that isn't dealing with that exact same issue where they are known as the retailer, but they don't own their product, somebody else is owning the product, they're just housing it. It's a very different business model. How do you navigate that since it's not a direct one-to-one retail sale?
I got it. Okay, so let's talk about that. That's a much larger question than just inventory, right? So
Sure.
People think all the time when they go to a search engine and they search cheap furniture near me or cheap furniture store near me, they think the cheapest solution shows up first. That's not true. That's not at all true. People might think Amazon's the cheapest furniture solution. That's not true. Maybe in some instances they are, but on many they're not. So the way to compete with that is to do everything at an expert level. Like, look, Hudson exists. They do things on an expert level. I guarantee you they're not the cheapest solution in their market space on every product they sell. They don't need to be.
Close.
There you go. Thanks for saying that, Scott. But to that point, you don't need to be the cheapest solution, and that's the difference. So how do I compete with them? I can make a larger margin. And by the way, the dealers that are selling on Amazon, they're giving up a huge chunk, Shannon, as you know, to Amazon. They got to pay to use that shopping cart. That buy button costs money there, right? So to that point, if I'm selling it myself as a retailer, independent of any other platform, I sell it myself. I keep all my margins. I control everything in my ecosystem. When I go inside a third-party platform or a marketplace, that's not my ecosystem. I'm living in somebody else's house. I'm like almost a tenant paying rent. There's other obligations I have there. There's expectations now that marketplace is putting on me, not just the consumer, right? So I control my ecosystem, my own world. I can do what I need to do that I think is best. It's okay if I mess up, as long as I'm making the choice to mess up. When I mess up because someone else dictated to me, that feels different. You know, it's like somebody else is spending your money for you in a wrong way. So one way is, if I get better reviews, I can charge more money, because if you're doing paid search advertising and SEO and you got good reviews, you might be 3 to 5 listings on the first page. My competition doesn't even get considered. I might be able to charge double. Now I'm being extreme with the double, but I can definitely charge more, because they're going to go, I feel safe buying from this person. And pre-COVID, there was only big brands online that did really well, like Amazon and Wayfair, because they did it so long. And that's all they did. They built the trust up. After COVID happened, everybody had to sell online, because nobody could sell in store at all. So consumers became more comfortable buying online all around the world. That just helped every mom and pop. They won't see it that way, but that helped them all, because consumers will buy from everybody. They know how to find out if you're valid or not. Now, people still make mistakes, but they know this is a valid dealer. I can tell from the BBB and every review they get that this is a good dealer or a bad dealer. They know that. That's your advantage. That's the answer. Build your brand that you're trusted. People don't always buy price, because what good's a free car if it doesn't get you where you got to go?
We're definitely not the cheapest in our marketplace, but customers come here because we've been in business for 40 years. They've been buying furniture from us. Their parents bought furniture from us, and we have a very good brand reputation. Also, product mix, I'm going to throw this out too. We do tend to specialize in higher end brands, and many of the brands that we sell simply aren't available on marketplace sites, including Amazon and things like that. They're just not available, period. We're not allowed to sell on marketplace sites.
You're not allowed to based on like the
brands. You gotta come to Hudson.
You're not allowed to based on like the contract that you're.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, Shannon, to add to Scott's saying what he's saying, there's a lot of vendors that have done well to protect a lot of the brick and click stores. They're putting the map pricing. They're putting you're not allowed to sell certain products, you know, on the marketplaces. That helps the brick and mortar stores.
Sure.
You know, and I don't start giving credit for that. I applaud the vendors for doing that, because if Scott's company is going to invest in putting product in their warehouse, by not letting them sell it at a bottom price online because they're not touching it, they're going, no, sorry. And there's another avenue. You have to buy inventory to even sell this. There's lines that are doing that now as well. If you don't buy inventory, you can't even sell our line. We won't let you. That protects people like Scott and what they're doing. So that gives them, it doesn't give them a competitive edge. It just kind of bounces the playing field to some degree.
Correct.
That makes sense. What do you guys, it's going to be Scott, if you can handle this, what are some of the most common issues that you guys are dealing with that on the fulfillment end, and what are you guys actually doing to navigate that?
Well, you know, again, I'm going to say ETA is the big one. Beyond that, I've also found a couple things, and I've only been doing this 3 years for the furniture industry, so I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but there's a couple things that are obvious. We experimented with companies that do drop ship. We dropped them all because I found out that our delivery system is much better than drop ship. We were getting so many damage returns, lost products, things like that. It was, in my opinion, hurting our reputation. We have a very good reputation. So we dropped all of that. One thing we do, however, different from the rest of the company, is we actually have a very robust, what we call out-of-area program. And we do, in fact, use trusted third-party delivery services for that. And it actually represents about 20% of our e-commerce revenue at this point. Just literally built it in the past year. We always ask our customers, why are you buying in Central Florida when you're in Minnesota? And the common answer is the products that we have in our catalog are just simply not available locally, period. These people have the money, they're willing to pay an extra $500 to have it shipped up to Wisconsin.
So I have a strong opinion on this one here. And again, we're talking about three types of deliveries, right? Three types of fulfillment: from your own inventory warehouse, from a special order that gets to you, and then from a direct to consumer, right? Well, I get dealers all the time. They call me and have these dreams of grandeur. I'm going to compete with Amazon. I'm like, why would you want to do that? Like, I don't understand why you even want, like, how much money can you spend 50 million on Saturday on AdWords? No, well, then you really don't want to compete with Amazon. Okay. But to that point, service area. They'll call me and say, I can do direct consumer all over the country. And the response I give them all is, because again, brand is everything. You know, Hudson's been around and 3-4 generations are buying from them for what I'm about to tell you. I tell them, create a delivery zone, 30 to 50 miles outside of your physical location or each location that you have, right? If you're not willing to service it, don't deliver it. Because if you don't service it, that's a nightmare. That's where all the bad reviews start. And then your price is a race to the bottom because all you got is price. You got nothing else going for you. You know, and nobody will buy a cheap car if it doesn't get them to work and they need to get them to work. Nobody will. I don't care how cheap the car is. You give it to them for free. If it doesn't get me to work, it is no good. I don't care how cheap your product is. If I have a problem, you won't stand behind it, you don't service it, I don't want to buy from you. So service area is a big part of the nightmare because everyone thinks, oh, I can sell all over the place. Again, that's another advantage to the brick and click that service their areas. People are going to these marketplaces, they're just drop shipping. If there's a problem, they don't do anything with it. Now, when it comes to the fulfillment, the largest cost to any dealer is the reverse logistics. It's a nightmare. You know, we created technology for shipping and financing, and we focused on logistics first because we realized reverse logistics, that's the biggest cost for everybody because dealers are going further and further out. Like, what do I do to get it back? How do I get this stuff back? And that fulfillment, if you're not considering reverse logistics when you choose about how you're doing your fulfillment, then you're not setting proper expectations for yourself or your consumer, and you're going to fail. Super important.
I can get behind this. The struggle I'm having is if we rewind 20 years, people were buying from local furniture mattress stores. And if we look at the numbers now of that $210-ish billion that's coming in through our industry, a third of that is being sold by brands, D2C. You're getting a third of that by just the top 9 that are selling e-commerce, your Amazons, your Wayfair, your Sam's Club, your Costco's, etc. And then you have a third that's coming from top one, that you're looking at just traditional retail sales, brick and mortar. If you reduce that even more and you look beyond just the top 100, non-top 100 brick and mortar, and pulling out your e-commerce brands and pulling out your brands, they have 6% of the total market share, which was totally not the case 20 years back. And so when we do talk about that, I think I'm just struggling on that. Like, you can totally be a differentiator. We're talking about more than 10,000 retailers getting 6% of that consumer dollar. And if I'm a retailer sitting here and I am looking at how do I get my piece, it's just a scary number that I'm always looking at, that I say, like, wow, our industry has definitely taken just an interesting path. And if I'm one of those 10,000 retailers sitting on the phone, sitting on the call today and listening and saying, how do I get my percentage of that 6%? Or do I look beyond that, 94% that I'm not getting or touching? I think that that's a hard number to stomach. Is that beyond fulfillment? Do we still say, don't worry about what anyone else is doing, do what you do best? I mean, we're seeing a lot of consolidation in the industry, but this industry just doesn't look like it did 20 years ago.
Well, let's take out bedding first and foremost, because bedding's a different animal in the sense that when people typically buy bedding, their back hurts. They got to buy a new bed, right? That's what. So it's as much as like kids' furniture is a destination buy. Well, bedding is typically a destination buy, right? But on top of that, you can buy a bed in the box now, right? So there's collapsible furniture and component furniture put together. But if you buy, for the most part, a traditional sofa set or a bedroom set, they're not shipping it to you like, the UPS in a box like a bed can be now. So there's some differentiators there. When you talk about the stores what do I do with my 6%? Well, the the only way that you're small is if you think small. That's conceptual. I understand that part. So there's a guy that I just built his first website. And if they see this, I didn't say your name. I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm not saying anything bad, but he's about to open up his 8th store. His website just launched a month ago. He's about to open his 8th store. And I said, how did you do this? He goes, I just focused on me and try to improve myself every week, every month, every quarter, every year. I'm like, that's great. The way he manages his inventory is he's doing it like this, like he's doing it on paper, like it's nuts. But now he's not, he's taking over the whole system, what we have, and it's going to be a transition for him to go from, manual to digital and automated. But he knows he wants to get up to 12 stores. He's got to do that to get to that next level. Now, the point I give to the other dealers as well is that their percentage is shrunk for a very specific reason, Shannon. It's not just expertise or lack of, it's the resources to buy the right expertise. So go back to the big screen televisions. 10, 15 years ago, I can't remember which one it was. Was it Sony? I think there was a television, like $25,000 flat screen, a liquid crystal flat screen. It was like 25 grand. I don't know if there's a television on the planet for 25 grand anymore. You can buy a movie theater for cheaper, I think now, right? But anyway, to that point, the solutions that these larger companies had, if you went back 20 years ago and looked at the top 100 for 20 years ago versus today's top 100, I'll bet you 60 of them ain't on the list. And of those 60, maybe 40 of them aren't even in business anymore, right? So look at it like in that aspect. So things have changed so quickly because of technology. People are making decisions on technology or on product selection, merchandising. Depending on what you do, that's all going to affect you. So your choices are going to impact that percentage of what you get of the market share. And today, I like to say that Renaissance is the best value in the business. You got to go find what you can afford that is most effective for you. Whatever it is, you got to do. Like most dealers don't buy SAP, right? And I'm not trying to, SAP is an expensive solution. The implementation of it's expensive. I don't know a single dealer that uses it. I've done consulting with SAP in other industries. I don't know anybody in furniture using it. There may be, I don't work with them. It's a super expensive solution. It's good, it's effective. And on top of that, there's been people on the higher end, they buy these expensive solutions. They use less than half of what it does. Don't even take advantage of what's at their disposal. I mean, we have stuff on our platform that's free. It's included. They don't use it. I don't even understand. I'm like, well, okay. I mean, I can't make you take the medicine. You have to want to do it. So the way they're going to have to compete is commit themselves, really use what they have. Look at what they have and say, is this important to me? Does this make sense? And not get distracted. Don't do that squirrel from that show up. Squirrel, like the little dog. I can't remember his name, but I love that dog. Because people say that to me. I'm like, no. I'm very focused on what matters. There's luxuries up here. And there's priorities right below them. And then there's necessities. You got to figure out what priorities are necessities and focus on them and stay there. And then once that's all stabilized, which is like Hudson's stable. Hudson has the time to look at luxuries if they want. Because they've done the work. They put in the time. They're in the multiple generations. I got guys in business for 9 years, 2 years. I don't know anyone that's like in the last year, but I have guys 2 years. And I'm like, listen, stay focused on what matters. Don't get distracted by, pipe dreams of grandeur, brick by brick. It's brick and click for a reason, brick by brick, right? So the way is I don't want them to be distracted. It's okay to look outside your circle of what you're doing, your own circle of influence, but stay focused on what matters to your business. If you want to watch Amazon all day do business, I don't know how it's going to help you do business. If you want to watch it to learn from it, that's different. But if you're just staring at it all day long, that's a problem. I feel like that's what we all do. Well, Amazon's doing this. Dealers call me, how's Amazon selling this so cheap? Is that a real question? If they make a nickel off every unit, they move 1 million units, they make more money than you today. That's how. That's what they do. And the rules don't apply to them. They make the rules. Like, for example, we try to give the vendors that give data out to our dealers. The dealers got to put that data on their platform, whether it be their website, their inventory management, they got to do it. Go talk to every vendor working with Amazon. Amazon makes the vendor do it. The vendor's doing all the work for them. That's just different. That's clout. That's revenue. It's like buying power. It's dictating power. We dictate that if you want to sell on our platform through us, you'll sell more as a vendor. You got to do all the work on our platform for us. I don't know a dealer that can do that. I don't know a dealer that can say that to a vendor that's not named Amazon. That's the challenge. So focus on what they can do. That's the key. What they can do, Shannon. That's important.
That's a great point. I do not know how this hour got away from us, because I could probably sit and talk to you guys all day. I feel like we barely touched the surface.
Sequel.
Seriously, I think we could probably have many more conversations on this. Scott, would you kind of bring us home, and we'll go around the room for each one. If I'm a retailer, I'm attending today, and I just want to know, like, what's my one thing that, if you could tell me anything, what's the one piece of advice that you think that they need to think about or consider when they really talk or are thinking about how do I better enhance inventory and fulfillment strategies for e-commerce?
Well, strictly from an e-commerce perspective, because that is my focus personally, is the product mix. Like I said, we have expanded greatly our product catalog for online. We sell a lot of online only products. And we focus on, for our e-commerce business, we focus on brands that are optimized for e-commerce sales. That might include, that's obvious, the big ones, Ashley, Coaster. Then you have Powell, Linen, companies like that. Those are all big online sellers. We didn't previously sell them in the stores. We do sell them on the website. They can sell them in the stores also if they want to. And that's really kind of a departure, but we've had great success with that kind of thinking. Just a little bit, take it a little bit, one step further beyond what we've been doing in the stores forever.
Thanks, Scott. How about you, Amy?
I think it would be that unified view of, or unified commerce and a unified view of inventory. Ted and I were both echoing the same point there, saying, adopt technology so that you have one source of truth for that inventory, so that a customer can have that differentiated experience to put yourself above the Amazons, and that you can promise better shipping times, be more trustworthy, and appear in more surface places. And this in turn could help you grow even easier. So you could open up to more sales channels and more marketplaces, perhaps even like a trade B2B arm. But everything hinges off you having a unified source of truth and being able to really work with that data well and predict where your sales are going to go.
Thank you. And how about you, Ted?
So I would say that, Scott talked about the merchandising, basically your product selection, right? So one is you have to have an inventory management system. So if you're going to get one and you're already afraid of it, like I've never had one, how do I do it, right? I went into a guy's warehouse and we did all the work and we did it. It is what it is. You got to start at step one, right? Start small. Get a system, start small. But the way to make it as easy as you possibly can is work with vendors that are going to support you in that process. So if they're giving you all the digital data, that they made it easier. If vendors are telling you, I don't want to give you the digital data, I don't want to work with your provider, if they do all that stuff, go get a new vendor. Like if they don't want to help you in your business, then they're not your partner. You need to find, in this day and age, you got to work together with your vendor partners. And they got to support you in their growth because you're supporting them by buying their product. If they're not supporting you back, you need to go in a different direction. And the ultimate is when we have conversations like this at our company, this is an exploratory conversation. This is brainstorming. Out of this, hopefully somebody's going to hear, whether they watch it live or they watch the recording of it, they're going to hear some bullet points. They can put a concept together for their own business. Then create an execution plan. Don't stick to it. Stick to it until you got to modify it and rechange it, right? And I hate to tell the dealers this over and over, but I've heard this many times. I say it to everyone that listens about technology, I know it's changed and I know it's uncomfortable, right? Change is uncomfortable. But if you don't like change, you're going to hate extinction. So you don't embrace this, you'll be gone. That's the choice. I don't want to scare them, but I know that's a scary comment.
We have a core principle here at Hudson's. We have 10 of them actually. One of them is comfort is the enemy.
I love it.
Which is interesting words in our industry here, right? So we're leaving with not the comfiest situations, but I love that. I just really want to thank you guys. This was a great conversation. I'd love to keep the conversation going. So Caprice, I know you're listening. Let's get this group together again. And if you're going to be in Las Vegas market here after the holidays, send me an email. We can get you, me, Ted, and anyone else that wants to join us to sit down and continue this conversation. I know Ted's always right to keep these going. And if our friends Scott or Amy are around, I'm sure we'd love to keep the conversation going as well. So thank you all for attending today. I know that your expertise is highly valued, and I think there were some really great takeaways. I loved just some actionable strategies. There's plenty of AI tools that you should be using as a trusted partner, and you can show proof by giving them the past and seeing how they did with the future and starting to look at that data to really leverage how to do business better and choosing the right partners. Our next webinar is going to be on Thursday, January 9th, which is connecting the customer experience with omnichannel strategies. I just appreciate everyone for attending. You know, together we're here to really build the future of furniture retailer. Thanks for tuning in. Happy holidays. And I hate to be the person to say this, but we will see you next year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks for
Take
putting it
care.
together. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.